Nature spared us of having to watch the Chicago White Sox offense last night, and Andrew Vaughn struggled at the plate. Let's discuss how much patience he should get next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm Todd Welter, a lifelong White Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. Check out my written work on the White Sox at southsideshowdown.com. I've also covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And hey, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, smash the like button, and provide a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts, as I would greatly appreciate that. All right, so today's show is going to start off with Andrew Vaughn's struggle at the plate to start the season. We're then going to go over the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal's sharing some new details on Tommy Pham's new deal. And then we'll wrap up the season, or then we'll wrap up the episode with the Sox farm system getting a high ranking. So today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, so Luis Robert Jr. and Yohan Moncada are on the IL. Eloy Jimenez is just returned from his stint on the IL. And Andrew Vaughn really needed to step up with the White Sox 3 best bats out, because Andrew Vaughn is probably the fourth. He might even be a better bat than Yohan Moncada, at least in terms of pure talent. And he's also a power hitter, where Yohan Moncada is more of a, he had one good power season, but otherwise he's more of a contact guy. He's going to hit more doubles. And Vaughn has not stepped up so far. He finally became the everyday first baseman last year when Jose Abreu was allowed to walk in free agency. And that was probably the right call, as the Sox legend has hit 18 home runs last season for the Astros, had a 237, 296, 383 slash line. This season, Abreu is off to a start where he's hitting under 100, and his OPS plus is in the negative. And you got to remember, OPS plus, the average, the threshold is 100. So you got to be really, really bad to have a negative OPS plus. I will not make a Martin Maldonado mention. I will not make a Martin Maldonado mention. I will not make a Martin Maldonado mention. It's doing everything in my power because I don't want to seem like I'm obsessed with the White Sox getting rid of Martin Maldonado. I just don't want to do that. This is my 5th episode of the host on of hosting Locked On White Sox. I don't want you to think that I'm obsessed with getting rid of Martin Maldonado. Vaughn showed enough promise at the plate that it was also finally time to give him the first base job full time. He was tried out in the outfield. They tried him out at left field and right field, and he was not very good. He was just judging where the ball was coming off the bat. It was not a strong suit. He was He had a negative field rating per Fangraphs in 2022. Negative 26.7. So he goes to first. That was the position he played in college. And he finished with a respectable 258, 314, 429 slash line, and 21 dingers. Now here's the problem, though. He was the 3rd overall pick in 2019. He barely played in the minors. He was fast-tracked to the big leagues. Ton of promise to hit. This was the guy that was supposed to take the torch from Paul Konerko and Jose Abreu. First base has been covered for the last 20 years by the White Sox. It's been an iconic position. And he finished as a .4 F4 player. He's basically a replacement level player. Shout out to Beefloaf from the 108, who's been banging that drum. And this was the year that even I predicted, I wrote on Southside Showdown, that Andrew Vaughn is going to be an all-star. This is going to be the year. His home runs have, grown. He improved by four home runs last year. This was going to be his year. And instead, he has 10 hits and 64 at-bats to start the season. No home runs, 5 walks, and 16 Ks. He has just 2 doubles. Now, his career has been filled with slow starts and bad finishes. I looked it up on Baseball Reference. I believe and then when I tried to copy and paste the stats in the notes, it didn't go in. But if I recall, he's got a career 242 average, I believe. It's under 250 to start in May and March and April. But he is struggling. The Josh Nelson of the Sox Machine at Sox Machine _Josh tweeted, Andrew Vaughn, he is got a 90.8 mile per hour exit velocity on ground balls. And I looked up his ISO right now. It's .034. And, because when it comes to numbers, I know there's so much in baseball, and you're like, what's going on? There's just too much data if you're like me. Now, I believe in analytics, but I'm not like giddy like some, folks get. Again, I believe in slash line, home runs, WRC plus, F4. But when somebody's struggling, yeah, you got to dig into those numbers. And right now, Andrew Vaughn is just not hitting the ball hard. His exit velocity is in the middle of the pack, but again, he doesn't have good, so maybe not hitting the ball hard. He's not hitting it harder than he should. And he's got a low barrel percentage, sweet spot percentage, and hard hit. And I know James Fox of Future Sox, he actually put this out on X. Send Andrew Vaughn to the minors. And that's why it's like, how much patience should you give Vaughn? Maybe that might be, hey, setting him to the minors right now might not be something we should entertain. But at some point, I remember covering a game back in the day, and it was the Brewers beat reporter Tom Hartcourt, and he asked, at what point is it just going to be a bad season and not a bad start? And that's what we have to ask with Andrew Vaughn. And how much patience? Yes, it's still early. We're about halfway through April. And I think we're taking what happened last April, where the Sox season was just over after they got off to that horrible start. And maybe we're saying, okay, this is it. We got to move. But the season was going to be lost anyway. Although I did listen to James Fox's logic on the Future Sox podcast, and it made sort of sense because, his development has just been so wonky. He spent about 50, he only played 55 minor league games in 2019. And then COVID wiped out the minor league 2020 season. So he's just been fast tracked. He's played all over where he shouldn't have. He's, you could see maybe he's just a mess right now. Mentally, all this stuff has been taking its toll on him. But I would say, let's get through this month. Let's have the temperatures warm up a bit and see where he's at. If he's still this bad by the end of May, then yeah, you need to entertain some drastic measures to get this guy going because the White Sox need him. So let's discuss interesting detail about the Sox signing Tommy Pham yesterday. Next on Locked On White Sox. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. That's all you do. That's all you need to do. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from baseball and basketball to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick Connor Bedard, DeMar DeRozan, and Andrew Vaughn all in the same entry. Prize Picks is the best way to get action in sports in more than 30 states across the country, including Texas and Georgia. Now, I'm not the greatest at placing entries, but I'm a fan of simplicity, and Prize Picks makes it simple with the more or less with your picks. That's all you got to do. They provide a line, they provide the number. You think, am I going to go up? Is it more or less? Easy. I got a buddy who's been telling me how great Prize Picks is because he can actually play in over 30 states. He lives behind the Cheddar Curtain, just near the border, so he can participate using Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match to up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And then I've been told I'm a competitive person. Okay, well, yeah, I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard it before. I've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. You think you're paying $500 on Boardwalk? Nah. You're going to pay $2,000. But now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. It's the Locked On NFL Mock Draft live on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 Eastern to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming live on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. And then welcome back into Locked On White Sox, your team every day. Excuse me while I grab a little gulp of coffee. For those listening via podcast, I still got the Bears mug I'm using today. My wife loves to collect mugs. We have a ton of them. I have 3 in my rotation. I got the Bears. I've got a Marquette mug because I'm a Marquette alum. And then my daughter painted me one that says Best Daddy with Bears colors. So those are usually the ones that you're going to see. And again, I've already mentioned it during the last 4 shows. Huge coffee guy. Love a little half and half in there. So the White Sox have confirmed that they've signed Tommy Pham to a minor league deal. The Athletics, Ken Rosenthal, he was on foul territory, and he basically mentioned one of the why they did this trade or this signing was quote, the White Sox with their injuries will give him a chance to play, and he gets a $500K bonus if he's traded. I'm sure that's part of their thinking. And Juan Toriobo of the Athletic, I believe, he got the details first. Rosenthal tweeted it out that it's basically a $3 million in the majors deal with $1.5 million in incentives. He must be added to the roster by April 25th, or he can request his release. And again, he'll receive $500K if he's traded. Rosenthal also told Foul Territory, I mean, basically the reason why Pham was still on the market was he wanted a better deal. He thought he should get more money. He had a really good season last year. He was a 1.9 F4 player, despite still being 36 years old. Was, hit 256 with 16 home runs and a 7.74 OPS with the Mets and the Diamondbacks. Absolutely destroyed the Dodgers in the division series with a 1.071 OPS and was really good in the World. It was even better in the World Series, 1.165 in the World Series OPS. Excuse me. I'm trying to bat, I'm fighting off a cold. I've been taking Umpca like it's, nobody's business. So what this means though is the Sox signed him because yes, and yesterday I went off on it a little bit, and now I've had a little bit of time to think. Again, there's nothing wrong with there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal. Because again, you get out of it within 1 year. Also, it can't hurt to have a little insurance in case Andrew Benintendi continues to struggle. But also, the Sox need to find guys off the scrap heap, get them to perform, and then flip them at the deadline as part of this rebuild. Even though they don't want to say it's a rebuild, it's a rebuild. And also, to be fair, I believe I mentioned about, Pham not being the best clubhouse guy, or at least I wrote about it on Southside Showdown. Rosenthal reported that actually he's a good clubhouse guy. A lot of his teammates love him. He does have a past though where he slapped Jock Peterson in the face a few years ago, but they were not teammates. And as long as you don't talk about fantasy football, I guess Tommy Pham is going to be okay. Chris Getz, this was quoted by Vinny Duber on X, said Tommy Pham will head to Arizona before eventually joining Charlotte and be with the Sox in the next several weeks if all goes well. No specific timetable. Quote, he's a gamer. He wants to win every night. So to be surrounded by those types can be beneficial to the team, end quote. So we know the Sox want grinders right now and good clubhouse guys. So obviously Pham would fit that according to reports. But really what it looks like is they're going to try to flip him at the deadline. They just need somebody to come in and produce and then flip. And I'm sure you're saying, well, there's the $500K bonus. I'm sure the White Sox are going to pay that and not the other team. So I would be surprised if Tommy Pham is still on this team after the deadline. And therefore, it does make sense to add him instead of, say, Oscar Colas or Jake DeLoach. Because also, teams have traded for Tommy Pham in the past. The Diamondbacks did. And Tommy Pham, the reason why he was out on the market, as Rosenthal said, was he was very proud and he felt like he should get a better deal. And he's coming to the Sox for the playing time. So we'll discuss next on Locked On White Sox a very interesting ranking of the team's farm system. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Again, I've said in the past that I'm not the greatest when it comes to making bets. Again, I once put money on the Bears to win the Super Bowl, and that was Mark Trestman's last season. But again, I got a buddy, big fan of FanDuel, loves it. He loves that, he can not only make solid bets to keep the game interesting, but he can do some interesting prop bets like, is the game going to go to overtime? And he likes that because you know what? It gives him just a little bit something extra to cheer for during the game. And, also doesn't require, him to put a ton down to make that type of bet because, he's got his bets locked in, then he thinks he's going to make a little, he's going to win, he's confident in, and then, puts a little bit extra on some of these crazy prop bets because you could bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe and secure and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet in automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, and welcome back to Locked On White Sox, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. And if you're still with me, I just want to thank you for being an everydayer. I really appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying, me as the host. And if you are, please smash that like button on our YouTube channel. Subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And provide a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. So, it just seems like it's been doom and gloom for the Chicago White Sox. They're off to their worst start in franchise history. And the franchise has been around for 124 years. That's a while. And it just seems like this team is directionless, which I talked about yesterday. It seems like there's no hope. But again, being a White Sox fan means you're on a roller coaster. That's just what it is. Especially during Jerry Reinsdorf's tenure as owner, which I think we're going to discuss tomorrow or Friday. How much does he get blame for this? Because it seems like everybody just blames 100% on all these issues. And I'm not saying he's not without blame, but we should really kind of dive into just what's the percentage? Because some people seem to think it's all Jerry. All Jerry. He's the one that actually found these players. So we'll get into that. But one thing that happened that Jerry did allow to happen was that loyalty to Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, the previous leadership group, were just not very good at their jobs when it came to drafting and developing players. I believe it was Nick Hostetler who was the director of amateur scouting. That was just really bad. Or is it Paul Shirley? No, Mike Shirley. Okay. Yeah, it was Nick Hostetler who was really bad at drafting. And that's one of the reasons why the White Sox got into this mess. Because a lot of the rebuild that brought us the 2020 season and the 2021 season, a lot of those prospects were acquired through through the trade. And Rick Hahn was very good at getting other people's prospects. But they weren't very good at drafting them and then developing them. And that allowed the farm system to just not be able to supplement the team after all the top prospects came up. But again, before Rick Hahn left, he acquired a good amount of prospects. And that's one of the reasons why we should have a little bit of hope. but maybe according to Bleacher Report, we should have a lot of hope. That's right. Yeah, you might have said, Todd, you lost me at Bleacher Report, but Joel Reuter just recently ranked all 30 teams, farm systems, and he has the White Sox as the number 3 farm system. Now, he went over, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 players. A tier 1 is a prospect who has elite skill sets and is going to be an all-star. A tier 2 has a good chance of becoming an impact contributor. And a tier 3 is basically your utility players, or they're still too raw to project. He has Colson Montgomery, pitcher Noah Schultz, and Drew Thorpe, catcher Edgar Quero, and Hiario Iriarte as tier 1s. He's got Brian Ramos and Samuel Zavala and Nick Nastrini as tier 2s. Shortstop Jacob Gonzalez and Jake Eder as tier 3s. Now, why is this a surprise? Well, it's because MLB Pipeline, they have the Sox system rated as the 20th best system. Now, they did this ranking on March 9th. They only do it 2 times a year, preseason and midseason. So that was before the trade of Dylan Cease to the San Diego Padres. But still, I remember Jim Callis being on a lot of places saying, I still have to adjust the rankings, but it's going to help. But I don't think they would have them as the number 3 rated system. They're number 20. That was where they were in 2023 at midseason. They were 26th, though, to start the season in 2023. To show you where they were at in 2022, preseason rank 30th. So it's kind of interesting because also MLB Pipeline, they do update their top 100 pretty much monthly. The Sox only have 3 prospects in their top 100. Colson Montgomery's number 9, Noah Schultz is number 47, and Drew Thorpe is 78. And I would like to think that that's what MLB Pipeline thinks is a tier 1 prospect. So it's kind of interesting that, one guy, seems to see the Sox got a top farm system and there's brighter days ahead. I would still caution that. I still think that this team needs about 2 or 3 more drafts, to really get a sound foundation. I think Mike Shirley, the director of amateur scouting, he can actually draft. He's done a pretty good job the past couple of drafts. He did find Garrett Crochet. I know Andrew Brzezinski or AJ Brzezinski really got on the White Sox for not drafting a potential first rounder in the late rounds. He did get one of those guys, though, in last year's draft. Wolko, I believe, is the name. So that's also the most important guy, I think, in the organization right now is the director of amateur scouting. Can he draft these players, identify the talent, and then it goes on to Paul Yanish. I believe that's who the director of scout, who took Chris Getz's job is. That's the guy who then needs to develop these guys. And then that is what will hopefully get us out of this doldrums that is Chicago White Sox baseball. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. So we'll be back tomorrow to discuss some more White Sox baseball. And let me know your thoughts on today's topics regarding Andrew Vaughn's struggles and Tommy Pham's new deal. You can hit me up on Twitter at ToddJDub or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.